Okay, fantastic. So once again, very welcome to the second event in the webinar series for the Edubots project. For those who haven't joined us before, Edubots is a European-wide project co-funded by the Erasmus Plus Knowledge Alliance program. And we are a consortium of partners from many different countries. I'm representing Differ from Norway. We also have a company called Hubert from Sweden. We have FOI, a Faculty of Organization and Informatics at the University of Zagreb in Croatia. We also have Science from Cyprus, which is a research institute. We have University of Leeds, with several of you represented here today as well. And we also have University of Granada in Spain. I really hope I didn't miss anyone. But we are doing research on the best practice use of chatbots in education, especially higher education. So that's the overall topic here, and we're exploring this now together. And we're really inviting the entire education community in Europe to participate in these community events. So we're having a number of warm-up sessions here now before our big conference, 22nd of June. So if you haven't already, please sign up for the conference. It's going to be great. Myles already told me that he's saving some of the best for later. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic presentation and discussion here today. Let me share something funny with you guys first. I think many of you are coming across chatbots in different areas of life. Something that I haven't seen before is chatbot art, and that's quite a funny art piece that I stumbled upon. So let me share my screen and just give you a taste of it and explain what it is. So I think many of you have experienced how challenging it can be to schedule a coffee or a beer with friends. So in this art piece, we have two chatbots that are trying to figure out a date and time to meet up. The long story short, this is an eternal spin. So they never tend to find a time to meet. So I personally thought that was a really good depiction of how hard it can be to socialize these days. All right, with that, I'll share the link with you guys in the chat, and please have a look later if you want to check it out. Okay, I'm gonna pop it over here. So without further ado, let me introduce Myles Blaney from University of Edinburgh. The floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. Right, I'm just going to present. I'll just make sure I've got the right screen on. I'll share that one. Okay. First question is, can everybody see a lovely slide? Okay, so my name is Myles Blaney from the University of Edinburgh. I'll just say I've got the first slide because the University of Edinburgh is massive. So I'm a senior learning technology manager in digital learning applications and media and learning teaching web section in information services. I think information services has about 500 people employed, and the university has about around 23 to 26 schools. I lose count every year because some merge and whatnot. And we offer quite a range of subject matters. I think this week we were ranked 16th in the world. We've got 3 places. So we have per year like 5,000 courses, large amount of staff, large amount of students. And so we have there is a growing interest in chatbots and automation. And I was roped into working in chatbots and automation with a project called the Distance Learning at Scale project, which was tasked with delivering microcredited courses via MOOC platforms at scale. So basically what that is like delivering maybe a fifth of the credit for a master's on a massive open online platform. We wanted to see whether we utilize aspects of automation and chatbots to expand the teacher function, but also thinking about all those kind of inquiries that might come in to professional services. So how do they deal with this sudden mass surge of new users? So dealing with repetitive queries and things like that. So the initial question we had is, where in all this do you start? Because it can be a bit of a minefield thinking about chatbots and bots and in education and different aspects of it. I think like the talk last week, you can see in the timeline, and I've got a timeline coming up as well myself. Chatbots can sit in various locations of a student's life cycle within the university. That's before, during, and even after as well as an alumni. So we had to sit down and think about what we wanted, where do we start? I've not even talked about the technology, the underlying technology that fuels all this, who provides it, how do we use it, how do we implement it, compliance, regulations with accessibility, and so on and so forth. So what we did is we just went out and had a kind of a look at what was happening within the FEHE sector, and that was broadly throughout the world to see if we could find examples of chatbots and bots being used in numerous aspects or any aspect of education. We know already from the University of Edinburgh, from a project that was done in 2014-15 by Shannon Bain, who wrote a research paper on a bot that was called TeacherBot, that would actually was used for a course which prompted students, I think it generated random quotes for students who tagged it to try and stimulate their knowledge, to think about how, think about topics differently maybe, and try and stimulate them to go out and do some more research into those topics. So it wouldn't provide the answers, it would provide the stimulation.
Myles, do you mind me just popping in a question here?
Yeah.
I'm curious about kind of what happened before this point here, where you kind of went into exploring the use of chatbots. For example, I'm a little bit curious if you remember kind of your first encounter with a chatbot. Is that something that comes to mind?
Yep, Domino's Pizza.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I won't even tell you a lie. It's Domino's Pizza. Domino's Pizza is the first chatbot I ever interacted with, and okay. I ordered a pizza that I bought, and it came, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's really quite simple." Because you think about it, the workflow for ordering a Domino's Pizza is pretty simple. It's either going to be this or that. It's just a simple options tree that you just run down, and then you put your order in, and then depending on what, I think the app that I was using at the time had my payment option, so I just took the PayPal account details and paid for it, and it was pretty simple.
Yeah.
So
you got the right pizza?
I did, and it came on time and everything. But I think this is the wonders of it all, and I think I'm going to talk about this later on as well, about sometimes I think in this space as well, we talk about automation and bots, sometimes you might overcomplicate it because we are in this area of AI bucket term. So we might overthink the uses of it and the impact of it, and maybe some of the use cases of it are the most simplistic ones. And something which I'm going to talk about at the conference is how we've engaged with the academics to think about co-creations of content of bots to actually alleviate some of the resource burden on them, and identifying with them what they believe is a resource burden. Is that okay? Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
No worries.
How have your chatbot journey been so far? Do you remember when that pizza was delivered?
Yeah, yeah. So this is it. It's just going out and having a look at everything and saying, what's out there, how is it, and looking at the education examples. I mean, there's quite a few different variations of what chatbots are being used in education that we find, and I'll say to you now that this list isn't comprehensive at all. This is examples like Felice Beckett's admissions and general inquiries chatbot, which is on Facebook Messenger at the time. It was doing I think it was doing admissions processes for clearing, which is fantastic. Georgia Textual Watson, which is a chatbot sitting in discussion boards, and people didn't know it was a chatbot, and they do. I think it's always the kind of go-to presentation thing. People talk about Jill Watson as a chatbot could be used. But even anyway, so we're looking at that and looking at the examples in FHE. We didn't even think about looking at the technology, and we'll talk about that slightly later on. But what we kind of designed, and this slide is by one of my colleagues, Michael Gallagher, who's an absolute genius. I spelled his name wrong in that slide. He'll kill me. Is the kind of, like I said, the student life cycle about where a chatbot would actually sit within there. And we've identified quite a lot of places where it could sit. And that got us it got us pretty excited about how we could actually do this. And harping back to the conversation last week about, multiple bots or one bot to rule them all, but like Lord of the Rings, there's many ways where a bot could improve the user experience. And I think that's a key thing to think about when we talk about chatbots as well, is a user experience. What are we trying to do with this bot, this chatbot? And for us, we wanted to improve the user experience and to reduce administrative resource burden as well. And this bot is, I won't say where it's from, but it doesn't exist anymore. But this is my real life experience of a chatbot, and it was a bit like what you said, Lars, about the bots that go in a loop. They keep on trying to arrange things. Well, one bot was trying to help me book something, and the other bot was a help bot, and it didn't like the fact that I was talking to somebody else, which was a bot, by the way. And that's a really great example, and I talk about this a lot in presentations internally. It's a great example of user experience being overthought. You know what I mean? And how bad it was. And this bot lasted for 2 weeks, and then it was down again, and they've repurposed it completely. So you could see they were trying to be a bit too smart.
Yeah. I think that perception of chatbots is one of the major barriers for adoption and implementation at larger scale.
I think, yeah, and this is it. I think one of the pieces, and I've actually not talked about this in here, is for our bot, we took the line pretty early on that when we built the admissions bot, and I call it an admissions bot. We don't have a name for it. We didn't call it a name. We went through 2 meetings talking about names and gender identity and things like that, and we decided, you know what, let's just be upfront and say it's a bot. And so the first line in this bot was, "Hi, I'm the admissions chatbot. I'm a bot." Just to make it crystal clear to people, because you think if you look at this slide, you would think Anna and Alex are crazy. And maybe Alex is going to come knock on my door because I'm talking to somebody else on their site trying to book something. So yeah, I think it is. It's being upfront with the users, and that probably solidifies what they expect the experience will be. But so we looked around, we did our kind of due diligence and what was available and whatnot, and we created two use cases that we wanted to explore. The first is what I'm talking about today, and that's called the business task. So general administrative queries where information is available, probably on web pages, booklets, somebody's head, And the key aim for that was for professional services to free up resources to deal with more complicated queries. So that's your kind of FAQ bot, okay? And that's what I kind of call the boring bot, because the information's already here, and it's not having really any kind of pedagogical impact. But it's very, very useful at the same time. You know, where is this building? It's very useful to a brand new undergraduate student who's new to the campus. You know, what time is my lesson? That's, you know, today is great information for any student. How far is that location away? Stuff like that is really, really useful. I call it boring because we already have this information available. It's just processing and providing the information to the user in one friendly user interface. And then the other use case we identified was what I call the fun experience, the fun dot, which is the teaching. And that's exploring how artificial intelligence chatbots could assist and support human-driven teaching. And what we're talking about here is the teachers being the heart of the chatbot and not being outside it. So they're co-creators and co-developers, and trying to expand the teacher function. And the way I describe this is it's like the movie Aliens, where Sigourney Weaver gets into the load lifter, you know, and now Sigourney Weaver can go off and beat up the other alien because it's like an Iron Man kind of suit. So it's just it allows them to do so much more, powers them up massively, and by having teachers in the center of that experience, if they identify what they need help with, then a chatbot can help with that. And that could be really simplistic tasks like booking personal tutor sessions, making sure students have all they need when they turn up to that session, like an onboarding bot for people turning up to the first year university, making sure their knowledge and kind of gaining some knowledge about the topics they'll be doing, and gauging their knowledge for the academics to see where they need to start with. So there's quite a lot of use cases that we actually identified. And I'll talk about that at the conference, by the way. And then
let's before you continue here, let's take a quick time out and open up for a question if there might be any thoughts or questions lingering among the participants here today. Is there anyone that have any questions at this point here, or thoughts, things to add?
Yeah, I'd like to hear about this education news, but said you're going to do that. That's coming up.
So the teacher bot, the fun bot. So we are trying to do that. However, COVID happened and it kind of scuppered the demand for it because resource burden was massive. And so the priority for the teaching stuff kind of fell dramatically because they had to obviously pivot massively. We're trying to ramp this up again to gain buy-in to the use cases that we've identified. I think we identified 13 use cases in total, but we've got 5 which are what we would say is no-brainers that we think would be really useful. I would say that if you're interested in this stuff, Michael Gallagher and Marcus Brains have published 3 papers on the journey that they went through to figure out how automation and chatbots could be used at the University of Edinburgh, and they're available. I can share those links later on, but we are still planning. I'm hoping that we can do stuff with bots and automation in teaching.
Fantastic. I think you also are going to share more about that at the conference.
yeah, and I think I've got a 15-minute slot at the conference, and the focus for that 15 minutes will actually be on our teaching bot experience so far. Although we haven't been able to develop, we've been able to do some basic prototyping, and I aim to talk about how we got to the stage we're at now. But it's a lot of Michael and Marcus's work that I'll be talking about. Okay.
Great.
Okay, so the next step for our bot was just to identify, the school. So we identified the business school. We went off and did the market analysis of interfaces that we could use, and this is something that was really interesting to see the variety of service providers, and that's not just conversation interface frameworks, so like Google Dialogflow, Amazon Lex, Microsoft Bot Framework, IBM Watson, Bluemix, whatever they've called it today. But there's also providers like FlowXO, Pandora Bot, Raza, ChatScript, Differ, obviously, Robot.me. There's quite a lot of vendors out there that offer various levels of chatbots and different kind of experiences as well. We're a Microsoft institute, so what we wanted for this pilot was a service provider that we already had a relationship and we had some kind of experience with, and would be reliable. So we just opted for Microsoft Bot Framework, also because the costing wasn't too bad as well, and we could host it on our own version of our own instance of Azure. So we went down to the mini tender, and the bot was we did a mini tender because we didn't have there's a lack of internal knowledge about building chatbots and a lack of resource, to tell you the truth, internally at that time. But we wanted to try and grow that internal knowledge and confidence in building chatbots. And we wanted the chatbot to be built on our infrastructure and not to be hosted anywhere else. So we did a mini tender. We awarded to a company that had recently built a chatbot in the UK for another institution. And then we went through the P&D phase. So that involves conversational mapping. And I would say to anybody, I think when people talk about chatbots, they might get lost in the technology aspects of it. And I'd say that the goal of any chatbot and any user experience is how well your conversation is mapped out, and is it fluid? Is it answering what's needed? Is it easy to navigate? And do you understand it yourself, or will your users understand it? And if you don't get that gold, your bot will be rubbish because the user experience will be rubbish too. We went through lots of technical and UI design. The admissions bot was a web widget on a page, so it wasn't an application. It could be accessed on a mobile device if you went to that web page, but it wasn't something you can download. It wasn't available in other kind of apps like Messenger or things like that. So it's just a web widget docked on a certain number of web pages. We did mocks. So I'd also stress that if you're doing conversational mapping, there's programs out there like BotMock and Bot Society and other programs that allow you to build up realistic mocks of chatbots. So you can actually navigate the flow of a conversation, understand dead ends and good experiences. So we built a lot of those, and the reporting. And I would say for our project, one of the lessons learned would be our reporting wasn't deep enough. We should have had a bit more in-depth reporting for the chatbot. Anyway, so
reporting as of kind of being able to analyze the interactions with the chatbot. Or?
Yeah, to analyze. And this is it. This is a whole learning curve for the institution, and I'll talk about this later on. They analyze more interactions, how, where, when, dead ends. When people jumped off other pages to see if we can track them across to those other pages as well. Because our reporting, the way the bot was built, we had limited information we could glean, limited reporting we could glean from inside that widget experience, and so we didn't know if people were clicking on links, whether they were actually jumping. If a link was presented, were they clicking that link and were they going to the other page? What time of day, where. So we had, our reporting wasn't the best, to be honest. Yes, this is just our planning design. So we had July, September for planning, then we had a 2-week deployment sprint window, but our sprint window was really affected because the bot didn't meet the WCAG 2.1 AA standard, and so we had to go back to the vendor and get them to resolve that, and that took a fair bit of time. We deployed the bot in the 21st, or May 21. It was signed off, and we could make it live. We didn't make it live till August. One thing I'll say now is that, sorry, we killed it. Yeah. One thing I'll say now is, I'm getting my dates mixed up, is that, yet again, we didn't instill a gender into it. We didn't instill a personality into it. It was the business skill. So the business skills, it's very professional. So the tone of it was professional. It wasn't like a funny haha bot. It was a admissions bot dealing with general admission queries to a master's. and it was only for one master's because we wanted just to pilot it and see whether it did have any impact on inquiries coming through, because realistically, if the chatbot can deal with certain inquiries, like what's the basic entry requirements, then you shouldn't be getting email inquiries or phone inquiries to the central school office about, what's the entry requirements, okay? So we deployed the bot in July to a subset of web pages. There's only 9 web pages it deployed to, and then the bot pilot concluded in May 21. And the bot is no longer available on the web pages, and I am nearly at the end of my report, which will go around internally with the results. One thing I'll say to you yet again about the conversational mapping is that yet again people think that you're in the sphere and it's all like crazy code and whatnot, and we actually find that a lot of the work we had to do was around the conversational flow. And a lot of bits of paper and sticky notes, a lot, because it's really interesting when you get people into the room. Do they all agree on the same questions and answers, even for admissions? And they didn't. So it was really interesting.
Looking at this,
and
it's pretty clear that it's a scripted chatbot, not the type of natural language chatbot that people or many are thinking about, especially connecting it to the kind of artificial intelligence and how we know that computers can understand human language to some extent.
So we actually had natural language understanding in the bot as well. And this is it. So we had certain aspects of natural language understanding in the bot so that people would type in key terms and the bot would kick in and go down another path at any point. So, if someone was getting frustrated, they could type help at any time and the bot would automatically say, here you go. And yet again, I think people overcomplicate it when they think about this stuff. If people, it's a structured conversation to certain aspects, but there are interjections at any point within this conversation where people can type in keywords or certain words, and it will go somewhere else with that conversation. And yeah, it is structured, but we find that the other way, it might be too problematic. The user might get a bit lost.
Yeah. So in terms of training the chatbot, were there anyone kind of committed to being that chatbot trainer that are following up on how well the chatbot is performing?
Yeah. And I'll say, Lars, that's one of the slides coming up because it's a big one. It's a big one. I'll just show you. I'll show you what the bot looks like in the web page, and then I think I'll get to my interactions and lessons learned. So this is what our bot looked like. Do you know what I mean? We identified kind of key topics within the school. We pinned them to the very beginning. Hello, I'm the business school chatbot is what they saw at the very beginning. Key terms identified. If you type help, we'll show you the help. We had feedback mechanisms and numerous structures of conversation put out. The design, by the way, this screenshot's actually missing. We had an information icon anchored to the top right of the chatbot so that people could tab through it. Obviously, the web pages were anchored to make them fully accessible. We had to modify those pages to include skip to the bot within a certain number of tabs as well. But it was AA standard accessibility, the WCAG kind of standard accessibility, which is what we believe is key for inclusivity as well for the use of chatbots, which is something. I know that people talk about voice chatbots, but this is a text-based only chatbot. We want to make sure that screen readers could use it. But yeah, so that's what it looks like. Like I say, the pilot ended in May. The bot is no longer available. It's been destroyed. Overall, we were surprised that the usage of it is lower than we thought. So 300 users interacted with the bot over 8 months, and that's pretty low. And our interactions were low as well. So you're looking at an average, it was 2 interactions per user. And yet again, our reporting wasn't the best, so we can kind of guess that they've probably clicked on entry requirements, which is the top button that they've seen, and maybe typed something in and then disappeared. And we didn't see admissions inquiries drop at all. And this is kind of funny because speaking to other institutions that have used this, they'll always say that admission inquiries have dropped massively. Ours didn't. Ours went up. So our page views increased by 30%, and you could say, looking at the stats again today, because we're still writing the report, some of the page views which we have directly linked into the bot have increased, where pages that don't have links in the bot haven't increased, or haven't increased as much, which is interesting. But we did see general inquiries rise, so we don't think the bot actually met its goal, unfortunately. And just some user satisfaction stats. Our user satisfaction was at the very end of the process, and it was kind of elongated. But you can see just under half of the people who used it were happy. Over half of the people who used it weren't bothered or weren't happy, which is grand. So I sure is, if I could turn back time, so my lessons learned would be that we'd probably deploy the bot on a higher level, a higher amount of web pages. So cost versus usage was a thing as well. For the cost per interaction, for our pilot was quite high, and so you want to drive that cost down by having it available on more pages for this kind of bot, I think. The COVID uncertainty might have prompted people to actually have human support more, because things were changing so rapidly, and the timing of our bot being released. The second half of the bot was in COVID time, and we've seen an increase in inquiries in that second half as well to central admissions team. So we think maybe that's had an impact. Our inquiry management was handled has changed. I would say that one of the things that I noticed pretty early on is our feedback there, like I said to you, is elongated at the end of a conversation. We probably want feedback per answer. So I got thumbs up, thumbs down attached to the response to see whether we could gather more kind of higher level feedback from the users, more detailed reporting, which I've already talked about. And I say we had a third party develop our chatbot on our internal infrastructure and train up members of our staff. But I think looking back on it now, I would just take the pain and develop it internally, or just say, do you know what, we're just going to let a third party deal with all the headache. We'll populate it, and then they can look after all the hosting and all that kind of stuff. One thing I'll say to you, and what you're talking about, what you're alluding to earlier on, Lars, is the amount of human resource required is massive. And it shouldn't be kind of forgotten about. And I think this is the hidden cost that we see in this kind of bot. And I think for any bot realistically as well. So for our school office, the admin team had ongoing reviews of the content to make sure the questions, the answers were still valid and correct, in a way where, like, moving resource from phones and emails to actually saying, well, you've got to actually make sure that this bot is correct as well. And I know dealing with people that manage web pages, trying to ask people to update web pages on a regular basis is very complicated and tough for them. So the chatbot is another avenue for them to update as well. And the AI, the natural learning understanding, classification, whatever you're using, I think people sometimes expect it to do more than what it can currently do. It's not quite HAL from 2001 yet. It's definitely like a person sitting in a mechanical suit, making sure it's doing what it's needed to do and steering it and updating it a lot. So it's a massive hidden cost for us.
Yeah, I think as AI and chatbots are a bit hyped, I think a lot of people are expecting it to do magic straight out of the box. Really.
Yeah.
You throw, or you spin your magic wand, and they will do the job for you.
Yes.
And so it sounds like you face that and type of expectations as well in this project.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, you know, looking around at the institutions and seeing what they had done, and even, you know, the magical, whimsical kind of bots that I go back to Jill Watson. People will always go on about, you know, Jill Watson was a keyword and then just response with an answer to that. So it's still not thinking for ourselves. We're not that level of AI yet, and I think that people have this Hollywood perception of where it is right now, and I'm always trying to dumb it down a lot to make sure people understand that there's still a lot of work that has to go on underneath. That's the hidden cost that we don't see. There's the cost for the technology, and that is a cost, but the ongoing resource to manage it. And, you know, thinking about this in the teaching space, it's you know, we think about the burden on academics right now. I know in the UK, the compliance burden on staff in the last year for captioning. So, you know, more and more staff are having, well, the public regulations state that all kind of pre-recorded content has to have captioning, and that captioning should be correct. And automated captioning is okay. Well, it's not okay, and it should be reviewed by a human. And automated captioning is AI captioning, ASR captioning, and, you know, you'll get word accuracy ranging from 80% to 95%. And people just think, well, why can't it be 100%? And you're like, well, there's certain variables, which is the human and the environment, but the technology is just not there, quite there yet. And 96% might sound good, and it is good, but that's still maybe 1 in 20 words that's wrong, and that word could be the key word, and that word could put somebody off things really badly. So it's thinking about the impact as well.
Yeah.
So
quick question: if you go back to the kind of lessons learned.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, since you're, I'm curious about if there was any like aha moments or any critical things that kind of really put you off or put team members off, or I'm unsure where the project stands right now. If you're kind of, you said the chatbot is destroyed, it's killed.
Yeah.
We're not going back there.
No.
I think you're still personally curious about this. I'm curious about either aha moments or kind of pitfalls.
I think, if I would say right now, the institution is still really interested in an admissions chatbot. We can see them being used, and we've had conversations with suppliers that do this really well already. And I think, you know, maybe because we wanted to try and figure out it from a twofold perspective, from this professional service, this kind of boring bot, and also for the teaching bot, there's still a really big interest in automation and chatbots at the university. And I know that for the mission style bot, that they, you know, if we level this bot up, so the questions and the answers that this bot had are the same questions and answers that would be asked for any master's level program in the business school and in a couple other schools. So it could be easily published on those web pages as well. But this was always a pilot for a limited period to gain our knowledge and to report back. But we're seeing other, like, I know the University of Glasgow has got an admission style bot that they recently publicized on their web pages, and it does exactly the same. It's just answering the same kind of questions, question answer bot. But I think one of the aha moments for us is that we have dead ends, where you probably want someone to have like a live chat. And I always remember, I'm going to pick on Leeds again. Leeds Beckett's Becky bot was really good when I played with it, and I spoke to them because it had, do you want to speak to a human? Type human anytime, and you got through to somebody, and you have a conversation with them in Messenger and ask them questions. So they had dedicated people, so that if people were feeling frustrated, then they could just type human, boom, and you're speaking to somebody. And I think that's where our bot was dead. We just had dead ends.
It sounds like that part of the outcomes from this project is kind of awareness, capacity building, and those type of soft skills, so to speak.
Completely.
You're in a stronger position to continue exploring.
Yeah, and we are, and I say to you strongly, we are continuing, and I strongly believe that we haven't failed. The numbers don't look great, but we have learned so much more. We've been able to do it, and I think right now there's a lot of people that think about it, and maybe they don't have the budgets or the resource, or they don't know where to start to. We were in that same place, but we were lucky to say we could do this for a year, 2 years, and figure it out and gain that experience internally. And now we know so much more about how we could deploy this style, and also how that will impact the teaching bot that we're looking at hopefully building in the next year anyway. Teaching bots. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. We have 15 minutes left here of the webinar, so I'll let you. I interrupted you a couple of times.
No. I just
already. So if you proceed with the slides a little bit.
I'll be really quick. I've got 3 slides to go, and that's me. So and like for me, this is just an example of your conversation flow, and this is what your users will experience. And this is really, I think this is 25 questions in here, and thinking about the flow of the bot. And it's something that we quickly realize is making sure you understand the conversation, the flow of your conversation, and the purpose of it. So it's not just, the value that it adds to that as well. One of the things as well, you were talking about there about lessons learned and aha moments as well, Lars. I would say omni-channel, making it available on not just you have to go to this web page as well, but making it kind of maybe available on a few more platforms, so people could go to where they're comfortable instead of them having to come to our platform to use it as well. And that's our wider thinking about bots, trying to go to the audience and not bring the audience, drag the audience towards us to go to this location, find this button, click this button, and then you'll be able to talk to a chatbot. That seems a bit daft. Where other institutions we've seen have a dedicated app, where you go to an app, or you go to a dedicated space, and you can interact with this bot on numerous platforms. That's a bit of a moment as well. Cost creep we've seen as well. So one thing to think about yet again, it's quite boring, but every interaction is at cost. So every time you're interacting with that bot, depending as well, if you're having natural language understanding, that's an extra cost potentially. Natural language classification, that's an extra cost. Your DB storage, the repository to hold the code, it can be additional costs that creep up. Cloud size is money, unless you're going to host it internally. But if you're going to host it internally, you're probably on VMs, and that's money still. So there's all those extra kind of costs as well, and they all do add up. And like any service, the more you add on, there's a technical cost, dev cost, support cost, and what's top of the admin cost to do everything else to it as well. So that's something that we learned. And you're talking about there about, did we learn a lot? Yeah, we have. I don't think we did feel we've kind of evolved. We've gained that internal capacity and building of chatbots now. Guidance and standards, something that actually Aftab touched on last week about the bots extension of the institution, about the tone, the style of it as well. The style guides, should bots go off and be different depending on different schools and colleges? And is that a really good experience for the user, or is that a bad experience for the user? And thinking about ownership and how the human aspect of it is integrated into the bot, and how the human has to be center of it as well. We've debunked quite a lot of myths. We're not all doomed to be replaced by bots yet, and it's really fed into the next stage. And this is, my role is in learning and teaching, so I deal with all the kind of learning teaching aspects for the university. And this, in a way, is kind of a missions style. So this is a different area, but for the teaching bot, that's right in the center of what I do. And this is really fed massively into how we go on to the next stage, which is the delivery of a teaching bot. So that's me.
Thank you, Myles. I think we've had a number of conversations over the last year or so, and I was fascinated how you kind of approach this, and even how you engage the organization with the topic as well, and kind of crowdsourcing ideas and making that long list of possible user cases, and just brainstorming and engaging in dialogue with the organization. And that's an approach that I think is really valuable here. So let me just open up here to see if there's anyone that got any burning questions. Diana, I saw that you were leaning forward from your garden here. Did that mean that you leant in to ask a question here?
Well, I would like to thank to Myles for a very interesting presentation. Could you please share a link with us to that chatbot you have demonstrated to see how it works, or perhaps maybe demonstrate the demonstrator chat with the chatbot, because we have a spare time.
It's the chatbot. The chatbot's dead. I destroyed it. However, let me just check to see, because we destroyed it. It's not available on the web pages anymore.
Okay, so it's not functional right now.
Yeah. So what I do have a video of it. Actually, just give me 2 seconds, because I think I can still access the code and launch it and maybe share the web page. 2 seconds.
So I think there's a number of things to share here, either now or after the session. We do have the Edubots community, where everyone is welcome to join and engage in conversations in between the webinars and ahead of the conference as well. I see that, yeah, JP raised his hand here. I don't know, it looks like you're looking for a link, Myles, but perhaps it's better to share that after the webinar. JP, good to see you again.
Yeah, same here. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we do.
Myles, thanks a lot. Lovely presentation. I think I might have missed it. I came in a little bit late. I was just wondering, how to get started with those initial questions. I know you brainstorm on the crowdsourcing that was mentioned. I was just wondering, would it be useful to kind of analyze, a year's worth of communication sent to and fro from the help desk, if there are service tickets, for example, and almost do thematic analysis and take, even words and phrases from those, human conversations and answers. So you might have said that already, but
you're spot on.
Would that be a useful start, to actually get you almost on par when you get going?
So with the business school, that's exactly what we did.
Okay.
When we approached them, we said, we're interested in doing this, and they said, yeah, we want to have a play with it, with a bot. And we were like, well, where can we do it? And we were talking about resource burden, and they says, obviously they were like emissions times massive resource burden. And we just said, look, we just need to look at the stats from the last 2 years about your inquiries. Can you do that for us? And can you group them together into the themes? So like the themes that we have are, I've actually got the bot here, Lars, if you want me to show it really quickly.
Sure.
Yeah. So I can show you really quickly, okay? 2 seconds, there we go. So, grand. So hopefully everybody can see that screen.
Yep.
So this is the bot, this is just in Azure right now. So we had a discussion saying, what are your top themes, and how much emails or inquiries did you receive for those themes? So we have a blurb at the beginning, and then we have the themes broken down to entry requirements, paying fees, scholarships, and uploading files. And at the time, that was about 55% of inquiries for that school. So if a user clicks on entry requirements, so this is in Azure, so this might not work as needed. That's already not working as needed. There we go. It would just bring them back with an answer. You wait for about 25 seconds, then it will give them, do you want to provide any kind of feedback or things like that. So we just broke it down to things. If you want to type in restart the conversation, you want to type in accommodation, it would tell you about the accommodation. If you want to type in help, it would give you some help information about an email address. And that's where we'd say we probably want a human person to come in and say, do you want to speak to a human? If you want to talk about fees, which fee you're talking about, okay, application fee. The application fee is £60, pay by ePay, click on the link, and you can pay your fee, okay? So there was, we just started that conversation with the school, and that's the best way to do it. That's how we get the buy-in, because they could see, if they did this upfront work, then the longer term it would pay off. And that's the other thing I would say as well. This, we only ran it for 8 months. And realistically, if we ran for 2 years and we promoted it more and we actually pushed it on more web pages, I think it'd have more value. But the cost to usage was too high. But yeah, if you build those themes out, and you don't have to build every theme out, it's just building out the core ones that you think will take away the most traffic, then that's gold.
Yeah. It sounds like one of the takeaways might be that kind of setting the right expectations for a pilot project is important here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go into a dead end with massive expectations of quick results in already in the pilot phase.
But thinking about this in the teaching space as well is where that value is added. Do you know what I mean? And because I think this is okay for admissions queries where people might get frustrated because they don't know the entry requirements, but there's other areas where they can find the information, about where does it sit in the teaching space as well, about should there be a dead end in the teaching space? How is that going to affect the student? You know what I mean? And I'm thinking about what I said last week about how people were getting emotional ties with this bot that they were talking to, they were telling things about. In teaching, I know in the UK where there's fees attached for certain students as well. There's expectations that they pay for something, that they expect certain quality, and is a bot. What should the bot do? The expectations upon that bot. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Indeed, it feels like I think that's something that we touched on last week as well, was kind of the level of trust with a chatbot. Do you expect in the first place a bot to be able to answer your inquiry that comes perhaps from your previous experiences with chatbots in general? When I'm talking with my fiance about chatbots and what I'm working with, she tells me that, just so you know, chatbot is the worst thing I know, next to electric scooters. So I think there's a general perception of chatbots that is a bit challenging, and especially in terms of adoption and the opportunities to build trust to new technologies like this. Thank you for that question, JP. Was that a good response?
Yeah, definitely. I had another one, but I forgot what it was. Maybe
I'll give you a second, and let's see if there's anyone else here that have something on their mind. All right, I think it's pretty quiet right now. Did it come back to you?
Yeah, I remembered. Just again, I might have missed it. Did you have some open-ended questions also for people to give reasons why they didn't like? Because, it would be interesting, like you mentioned, the COVID might be behind it, so there might be other things that you track, not only efficiency, for example. So it could be that 90% would have said, yes, I got the right answer, but that wasn't enough for my experience. So
yeah,
Are there themes like that emerging? Did you have any open-ended type of analysis on some of the answers?
So
feedback.
So what happened is the way we designed it is that if it got to a end of a question after 25 seconds, and we had a massive argument about how long we should wait to provide the kind of, how we answered your question statement. And if a user said yes, then we provide them with, how was your experience? And they'd be shown 3 emojis: happy, sad, and I don't care. And they select on that. They select on the required emoji they want, and then they can provide some text feedback. Only 18% of the people that use the chatbot provided even got to the emoji stage, so to provide any feedback. So, and this is what one of the things that we suggested. Now looking back on it, is that every kind of response maybe, or should provide like a kind of, a thumbs up, thumbs down response to that answer, instead of having to wait for them to go through certain stages to provide more feedback. So we'd actually say, we would change that now. It was too elongated, the feedback process for us. And that's why we think we've seen some people drop off, because you're right, they might have got their answer, gone to another web page and just close it down, and that's it, done. The more analyzing the web pages today, we can see, the web pages that had links in the bot have had increased traffic, increased page views, more than the average increase. So we can see that we think that people have been navigating away and just, that's it, they're done. Why should they come back and provide feedback? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
I was thinking more along the lines of, was there kind of a formal evaluation / research, because that might also be interesting. But I mean, that's for an admin bot. Do you really need that or not? Possibly more for a teaching bot or a more social bot, etc. But if you talk about pilot, then also might be useful to to get an audience and then have them use it and then ask them more formally, as it were. So that was what I was aiming for. But I mean, this is real life using, so that's something totally different. So that makes totally sense.
We got another question here, so I think we'll take that one, and then we'll wrap up the session here for today. Tom from Leeds.
Hi, thanks again, Myles. I guess I just had a bit of a follow-up from the little demonstration that you had there, and I guess JP's first question really, which was, so you started off by saying, well, what are the subject areas for the common inquiries that the humans were bored of dealing with and providing similar answers every time. But I wonder if it might be helpful to look into the answers that they were giving as well. So my guess would be that what you might have found is, so the answers, the ends of those journeys that you were demonstrating there for the bot were kind of, here's a link to the web page where that information is, and then the user then has to go and find it on the web page. But if the thing that was causing, like, I might be able to find the web page in the first place myself, it's probably not hidden, right, on the website. But what I might not be confident about is which section of it specifically applies to me, that kind of thing, if you know what I mean. So like the entry requirements might have 4 or 5 subsections where it says, if English isn't your first language, you need one of these several different possibilities for demonstrating your competence with English to come and study at Edinburgh. Or, you know what I mean? So I suspect you might find that people want to go a level or two of drill down into that, and what they potentially really want, especially if they're prospective students who might be 18, 19, is some reassurance from a human or whatever the agent is that, yes, this is the correct one that applies to you. What you thought is correct. You know what I mean? So I don't know to what extent, how many of those cases bots can actually handle in a way that is actually reassuring.
And this is it. So this tiny window of information, and like you say, it's because when we started discussing with the school, they were like, it's this, and it's like 2 paragraphs, and we'd be like, whoa, we can't put 2 paragraphs in here. Can you shrink it to 2 sentences? And they were like, no. And we're like, well, where's it on the web pages? And this is where thinking about what we linked out to is the quality of the design of those pages as well, the amount of content on there, because some of them are just squeals. And it's kind of, what we're pointing to. If it's not well designed, it's just going to be, you'd be frustrated. I'd be frustrated. And I know some of the things that we put in there will cause frustration because they're squeals of text. And they're not pretty text, they're not well designed on a web page. So yeah.
All right. So thank you, Myles, for this and these insights into running an actual project, pilot project on chatbots. Yeah, it's a round of applause for that.
Nice.
And I think there's a lot of things to learn from this for others that are kind of exploring the opportunities to start their own projects. And I think we kind of have a lot of good cliffhangers for the conference. So I think speak for all of us that we're looking forward to learn much more about the teaching and learning bots that you're exploring and the type of user cases that I think you said they were no-brainers. So that's making the cliffhanger even stronger for myself to learn more about that. So with that, I just want to leave you with an invitation to join the community event for next week as well. If this if you find that interesting to learn about another project, another conversational agent developed at the Faculty of Organization and Informatics in Croatia. It's a colleague, Marcus Schattman, who's leading the AI lab, and I think that will be quite fascinating. So I hope to see you all then, and have a really nice evening.